Hello everyone, this is Michael Seitz doing Group 2, Week 2's presentation on social perception. This presentation will cover a reading summary from the textbooks Social Psychology and Theories in Social Psychology, as well as 2 reading articles, followed then by major topics: self-esteem, observation, attribution, social comparison theory, and self-presentation. Following that, we'll conclude with 2 questions regarding the course material and topics covered from this week's lesson. The textbook Social Psychology by Kassin, Chapter 3, The Social Self, covers the topics of the self-concept, self-esteem, self-presentation, and the multifaceted self. Chapter 4, Perceiving Persons, covers the topics of observation, attribution, integration, confirmation biases, and social perception. In the textbook Theories in Social Psychology by Chadee, attribution theories, how people make sense of behavior, assesses how people's explanation of behaviors traditionally categorized as person or situation causes, while expanding this theory into multiple distinct modes and specific types within modes. Social Comparison, Motives, Standards, and Mechanisms discusses how social comparison influence cognition, affect motivation and behavior, and are also shaped by cognition, affective, and motivational factors. Consumers' responses to negative word-of-mouth communication and attribution theory perspective is a research done by Lazenac, DeCarlo, and Ramwalski from 2001. This research found that causal attributions mediate the negative word-of-mouth communication brand evaluation relation. Friend networking sites and their relationship to adolescents' well-being and social esteem by Valkenburg, Peter, and Schoden, 2006, found that positive feedback on social media profiles enhance adolescents' social self-esteem and well-being, whereas negative feedback decreases their self-esteem and well-being. Self-esteem is an individual's evaluation of themselves, generally in terms of positive or negative self-perception. Individuals manage their self-esteem through self-awareness, self-consciousness, and self-regulation. Self-awareness is self-focused attention that allows individuals to notice self-discrepancies, resulting in an escape from the self-awareness or a change in behavior. Self-regulation is an ongoing process that individuals use to control or change their thoughts, behaviors, feelings, and compulsions to adapt to societal norms. Self-consciousness is divided by private and public. Private self-consciousness is displaying a character trait of internal recognition to enhance self-esteem, whereas public self-consciousness is displaying a character trait of external recognition to enhance self-esteem. Public self-consciousness can be seen through social media usage, as individuals can become preoccupied with the perception of others, driving a need for positive feedback through social media, by way of likes, shares, etc., as seen in Valkenburg, Peter, and Schoden 2006 study, Friend Networking Sites and Their Relationship to Adolescents' Well-Being and Social Self-Esteem. 3 categories of observation we will discuss here are perceptions of persons, perceptions of situations, and perceptions of behavior. Perceptions of persons is often a quick process in first impressions. Research into first impressions has shown that it takes very little time for an individual to read another's facial expression and attribute personality, demeanor, or mood. Evolutionary psychologists theorize this trait of quickly reading faces of other people developed as a survival need. For example, if another person was displaying signs of anger or aggression, that would mean that they could potentially be a threat. Or, if another person was displaying disgust while eating a new food. Perceptions of situations is based on our views of social scripts. A social script is an expectation of how events should occur in a social situation. Scripts can vary based on individual experience and cultural differences. For example, there is a common understanding of how an American first date should happen and sequence of events. However, this script can vary based on the experience an individual has with dating and can be extremely different when comparing first dates cross-culturally, such as between American and Chinese cultures. Perceptions of behavior derive meaning from observed actions. This is where individuals rationalize the why behind another individual's actions. The concept can also relate to inanimate objects through mind perception. Mind perception is the phenomenon of assigning human characteristics to a non-human entity. As discussed in Kassin's social psychology, the advancement of artificial intelligence displays mind perception in the ways we perceive and describe our Roombas, Alexa, Siri, or self-driving cars. Attribution refers to how individuals explain the causes of behavior. Individuals further assess attribution into internal and external causations of behavior and situations. For example, in a soccer game, the blue team scores. The red team would attribute this goal to external causations, like the wind was favorable or the referee did not call a penalty, while the blue team would attribute the goal to internal causations, like the skill of the blue team or the lack of skill of the red team. Harold Kelly, 1967, assessed attribution through a covariation principle, stating the impact of consensus, distinctiveness, and consistency in making attributions. Consensus refers to how other people would react to the same stimuli. Distinctiveness refers to how the same person would react to different stimuli. And consistency refers to how the person would react at a different time with the same consensus and distinctiveness levels. Lazinek's study on consumers' responses to negative word-of-mouth communication found higher levels of consensus, distinctiveness, and consistency was significant in affecting brand and communicator attributions, supporting Kelly's theory of covariation. Social comparison is a mechanism influencing people's behavior, experience, and judgments through contrast between themselves and others. Festinger, 1954, social comparison theory states people have fundamental need to maintain an accurate and stable self-view, and therefore utilize social comparison to receive feedback about their characteristics and ability. Social comparison is one theory that could explain the phenomenon of self-monitoring. Self-monitoring is the tendency of a person to change or adapt their behavior to meet expectations of different social situations. A person exercising high levels of self-monitoring in an unfamiliar social situation would likely adapt their behavior to how others are behaving according to social comparison theory. Self-presentation is the process by which we try to shape what other people think of us and what we think of ourselves. Strategic self-presentation consists of our efforts to shape others' impressions in specific ways to gain influence, power, sympathy, or approval. Ingratiation describes acts that are motivated by the desire to get along with others and be liked, whereas self-promotion describes acts that are motivated by a desire to get ahead and gain respect for one's own competence. Self-verification states people would rather reflect on and learn more about their positive qualities rather than negative ones. Questions proposed for discussion from this week's reading are as followed. 1. Kassin Chapter 3 discusses self-consciousness in relation to being private and public. Matthew 6:1 states, "Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven." Which form of self-consciousness is Matthew referring to in this scripture? In your opinion, why does Matthew emphasize this form of self-consciousness, and how does it relate to individual self-concept regarding living a better Christian life?
Question number 2. Valkenburg's 2006 study on social networking sites and their relationship to social self-esteem focused on the social media site CU2. Since 2006, social networking sites have grown in number and popularity. From Festinger's theory of social comparison processes, select a hypothesis on consequences of social comparison to the self, and discuss how current major social media sites like Facebook and Twitter have a negative effect on self-perception.